Chapter 9. Mr. Chen, you can say whatever you want. As long as I can do it, I will never refuse. Reuben said quickly. Mr. Chen, what is the use of the brush and cinnabar on your list? At this time, Sonia asked. After all, writing brushes and cinnabar are not like things that can be used to treat diseases, and these two things are all over the street. Sonia, since Mr. Chen wrote it, it makes sense, so don't talk too much. Reuben glared at Sonia and said. It's okay. David smiled. These two are also used for healing, but these two are not ordinary brushes and cinnabars, they need spiritual brushes and cinnabars. With spirituality. Sonia was blinded this time. Reuben was also confused, they didn't understand what was spiritual at all. Seeing that both of them were blinded, David explained, all things in the world are born and die, and everything has spirituality, even the dead things that people see in the world, such as the table and chairs here, or all there can be spirituality, but that requires particularly harsh conditions and opportunities. Just like this chair I made, if I sit on this chair to practice the exercises for 10 years, 50 years, or even 100 years, this chair will gradually become spiritual. David was afraid that the two of them would not understand, so he could only follow the two of them in a very popular way. Oh, I see. Sonyadanli exclaimed in surprise, Mr. Chen's meaning is just like it was played on TV, a tree in the fairy cave can become spiritual over time, and even transform into a human form. Quote, Sonia, don't talk nonsense. Reuben was speechless after listening to Sonia's explanation. In his opinion, there are no gods in this world, what a century it is. Miss Su's explanation is right, that's what it means. David smiled slightly. David didn't believe it before, but after following Irvin for 3 years, he realized that there were too many things in this world that he didn't know. Just like the condensing heart technique that the Irvin passed on to him, it is a method of cultivating immortals. Reuben smiled awkwardly. I didn't expect that Sonia really explained it correctly. If someone said something about spirituality, immortals, etc., Reuben would definitely sneer, but when David said it, it made Reuben a little shaken. David and Reuben were talking, without even looking at Carl, who was kneeling on the ground. Although Carl is not particularly bad, it is difficult to take responsibility. David didn't want to accept him, and without the permission of the old master, David nor will they accept apprentices casually. After talking for about 10 minutes, David also knew how Reuben was injured. It turned out that when Reuben was young, he was slapped by a business competitor, because there was no trauma, and he was fine after the examination. So he doesn't care. But it didn't take long for Reuben to feel that his body was getting weaker and weaker, and he often had difficulty breathing. However, Reuben was afraid that his family would be worried, so he kept it a secret, which is why Sonia didn't know her father had a hidden illness. David understood as soon as he heard it, the person who injured Reuben must be a warrior who has cultivated inner strength. It seems that he is going to kill Reuben, but Reuben is rich and buys it with heavy gold. Tonic can only last until now. If he hadn't met himself, Reuben would not have survived at all. I beg Mr. Chen to accept me as a disciple. Carl, who was kneeling on the ground, shouted again. At this time, his legs were already numb, accompanied by pain, making Carl very uncomfortable now. David glanced at Carl. Get up, I won't accept apprentices, but if you don't understand something, I can give you pointers. David saw that Carl had been kneeling for so long, and he was sincere, so he agreed to give him instructions, but David would never accept an apprentice. Seeing David say this, Carl was overjoyed and thanked him repeatedly. Thank you, Mr. Chen, thank you, Mr. Chen. Carl stood up slowly, but his legs were numb and painful, making him unable to stand at all. Seeing Carl's situation, David stretched out his hand and tapped on Carl's leg. The pain and numbness disappeared instantly, which shocked Carl. Mr. Su, there are still parents at home. I'm going back. After the medicinal materials are ready, you can call me. David slowly got up and said. David's mother was still at home alone, which made him very uneasy. Mr. Chen, where do you live now? Reuben asked. What's wrong with living in Xingfuli community? David said strangely. Oh, it's nothing, I just have a house that has been idle and useless, so I will give it to Mr. Chen. That place is also very suitable for recuperation. I hope it will be useful to Mr. Chen. Reuben said, and took out a key from his pocket. Then thank you, Mr. Su. David wanted to refuse. He did not seek medical treatment for Reuben, but he thought that his parents lived in that dilapidated house, and he wanted to earn money to buy a house. He was afraid that it would take a while, so he agreed. But when the key was handed over to David, he was stunned. This was the key to the Pinerest Villa. Chapter 10. The Pinerest Villa district is the best community in Horrendal. The whole community is built on the only mountain in Horrendal. The scenery in the community is pleasant and the air quality is particularly good. The people who can live here are either rich or expensive, and they are all upper-class people. Ordinary people, let alone living in the community, can't even pay the property fee. Mr. Su, this house is too expensive, you should take it back. David hurriedly returned the key. Mr. Chen, don't shirk. Does it mean that my life is not worth a house? Reuben smiled slightly. When Reuben said this, David could only accept it, and Reuben took out a bank card and gave it to David, with 10 million in it. David knew that he couldn't escape, so he could only put the bank card in his pocket. Just when David was about to leave, there was a burst of noise from downstairs. It was very loud. David frowned slightly. Seeing David frowning, Reuben immediately called the hotel manager over. What's going on? It's so noisy. Reuben asked. Mr. Su, young Master Xiao of the Xiao family is getting married today, and the wedding banquet will be held in the banquet hall on the second floor, that's why it's so noisy. The manager hurriedly explained to Reuben. When Reuben heard this, he gave up. After all, his hotel is open for business, and when people get married, it is inevitable to make some noise. Mr. Su, farewell. David bowed his hands to Reuben and walked out of the private room. Just after David went downstairs, he met Jordan and walked into the hotel with his bride Delia in his arms. After seeing David, Jordan was stunned for a moment, but then laughed. David, I didn't expect you to come to our wedding, do you want to eat and drink? David glanced at Jordan coldly, did not speak, turned to one side and wanted to leave. Don't go. Jordan blocked David's way, and said mockingly, look at your ex-girlfriend, isn't she beautiful now? Don't you have anything to tell her? Jordan is deliberately making David embarrassed. Brother Lei, ignore him, the time is coming. Delia, who was in Jordan's arms, didn't even look at David, she said to Jordan. Jordan, don't pay attention to this rubbish, you can't miss the hour, you go to the hall, I'll drive this rubbish away. Ethel urged Jordan, then looked at David and said, have you finished this guy? You even chased after you to the hotel, just like your toad, can my daughter like you? Take a photo of yourself, get out of here, don't think about making trouble here. Ja Mei's words are bitter and mean, and it can be said that every word is punishing. The relatives and friends around them whispered one by one, watching David keep sneering. At this time, David was like a clown jumping off the beam, and was laughed at by everyone. One day, you will all kneel at my feet and beg me. David suppressed the anger in his heart, pushed Jordan away, and walked out. Stop him. Jordan frowned. Today, if you want to participate, you have to participate, and if you don't want to participate, you have to participate. I will let you, a waste, watch your girlfriend marry me. As soon as Jordan spoke, the bald people immediately stopped David. They were beaten at David's house, and they still had grievances in their hearts. Now they just want to take revenge on David. Seeing the bald-headed people holding him viciously, David slowly turned his head to look at Jordan. Are you sure you want me to attend your wedding? Yes, I just let you watch it with your own eyes. I want you to know that if you dare to fight with me, you are not worthy. Jordan sneered. Well, if I were to attend, your wedding wouldn't be held. After David finished speaking, he turned around and walked into the wedding banquet hall on the second floor. There are more than 100 tables in this hall. Ha ha ha, I want to see how you made my wedding fail. Jordan laughed. He didn't believe David's threat at all, but in order to prevent David from making trouble and disturbing everyone's yaxing, Jordan faced that the bald head said, Bald head, bring a few more people and follow that David for me. If he dares to come back, immediately arrest him for me. Young Master Xiao, don't worry, this matter is left to me. The bald head nodded, and there were a few cold rays in his eyes. He was just about to seek revenge on David. In the marriage hall, David found a corner and sat down. The people who can attend the Xiao family's son's wedding are either rich or expensive. Therefore, the appearance of David caused many guests in the hall to cast a strange look. At such a luxurious wedding scene, an ordinary young man suddenly appeared, which seemed out of place. But soon, David's identity was spread among the many guests, and this time, there were more eyes on David. Most of them were mocking, and some were sympathetic. It's just that David didn't care about these eyes, sitting alone in the corner, eating the dried fruit on the table, without a trace of expression on his face. The bald head is with a dozen people, standing behind David and staring closely. As long as David dares to make a change, he will shoot without hesitation. "Hey, isn't this David? When did you get out of prison?" A sarcastic voice sounded. David looked up, and found a woman dressed in enchanting, heavy makeup walking towards David, with a young man following the woman. The woman's voice instantly attracted the attention of the surrounding guests. At first, they only thought that David was the ex-boyfriend of the bride, and they came to see his girlfriend for the last time. Of interest. Chapter 11. David looked at the woman with heavy makeup and a look of disgust on his face. This woman's name is Zhang Wenjing, and she is also a classmate of David. She once chased after David in school. At that time, David's father had a formal job and was considered an iron job, so many people pursued David. It's just that David didn't like this Zhang Wenjing. Being with Delia, he felt that Delia was better than Zhang Wenjing, a woman who loves vanity. But now it seems that the two women are the same thing, and David is wrong. "David, why didn't you talk when you met your old classmate? Are you dumb? You were very handsome when you were in the school, and you were the president of the student council. If you let the school principal and teachers know, you are excellent in both quality and study in their eyes. The president of the student union who became a labor prisoner after graduation, do you think they would think so?" The youth beside Zhang Wenjing also spoke up. The young man's name is Fu Wei, and David used to be roommates. The two of them are still buddies, but Fu Wei also has a crush on Delia. Later, after seeing David and Delia together, he holds a grudge against David and does not much. The matter of destroying David and Delia was just unsuccessful. The relationship between David and him was immediately cut off. After graduating from college, they never contacted him again. Now that Zhang Wenjing and Fu Wei are here at the same time, they should have been invited by Delia, otherwise these two people are not eligible to participate. David just glanced at the two people, then lowered his head and drank tea silently. He was too lazy to care about these two people. Seeing David lowered his head, Fu Wei and Zhang Wenjing were even more proud. They felt that David was afraid of them. "David, just got out of prison, have you found a job yet? Would you like me to introduce you to a job of cleaning the toilet? Although it's a bit dirty and tiring, you can still have enough to eat. Now your dad has lost his job. You're trying to count on him, I'm afraid you can't count on it." Fu Wei had a smug smile on his face, not to mention how happy he was to be able to step on David under his feet. When he was in school, if David's father hadn't had a formal job, how could he have been compared by David? "Fu Wei, don't talk nonsense, the president of the Tangtang Student Union, how can you go to the toilet? Anyway, find a cleaner job, I'll go sweep the road." Zhang Wenjing covered her mouth and giggled. Ha ha ha. Fu Wei and Zhang Wenjing's mockery of David made the bald head and many other guests laugh. At this time, David slowly raised his head. "If you two don't want to die, then leave here quickly." David's expression was indifferent, his tone was flat, and there was no trace of anger, but when Fu Wei and Zhang Wenjing heard these words, both of them shivered. Especially that Zhang Wenjing, the whole person is like falling into an ice cave, his whole body is cold, and he doesn't even dare to look directly at David. The words that were originally prepared to be sarcastic, suddenly can't be said at this time. After a while, Fu Wei seemed to have been greatly insulted, and yelled at David with a grim face. "You are a labor prisoner, what are you dragging? Your girlfriend is married to someone else, and you are not even AF.art. Don't dare to let it go, what big words are you telling us? That's right, knowing that the Shao family is rich and powerful, you dare not provoke it, so you want to vent your anger at the two of us. We are not easy to provoke." Zhang Wenjing also calmed down at this time, pointing at David and scolding. "Do not make me angry." After David finished speaking, he lowered his head again. "Damn, I'll mess with you. How dare you? This is young Master Shao's wedding. Fu Wei cursed angrily, stepped forward and carried David by the collar, and directly lifted David up. The reason why they targeted David like this was entirely because they wanted to please that Jordan. As long as they please Jordan, their work will be able to go smoothly in the future. Fu Wei carried David, lifted David up at once, and was about to move towards David but saw David slap him. Snapped. With a slap that was enough to startle the entire banquet hall, Fu Wei flew out and slammed heavily on a table. Wow! The table became smashed, the dishes, bowls and tea sets all fell to the ground and were smashed to pieces. All the guests turned their attention to this place, but Jordan and Delia on the wedding stage, no one was paying attention. Even Jordan and Delia couldn't help but look in the direction of the sound. Damn, you are courting death. When the bald head saw David's action, he instantly became excited and shouted, "Give it all to me, kill this kid." The bald head can now justifiably avenge his personal revenge. He knows that David has some skills, so he can't go up and directly let more than 10 men behind him swarm up. Boy, dare to make a scene at young Master Xiao's wedding, you are courting death. More than a dozen thugs with sticks greeted David. When many guests saw this scene, they couldn't help shaking their heads. They knew that David would not survive. Chapter 12. Kill him, kill him. Fu Wei, who was sent flying by David's slap, covered his face and stood up, yelling fiercely. On the wedding stage, Jordan raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a cruel smile. Everyone was watching David's jokes, no one pitied him, and no one would save him. Facing the siege of more than a dozen people, David sneered and suddenly took a step forward. Boom! David took this step. Like an earthquake, the entire hall seemed to shake. And the dozen or so thugs let out a scream in an instant, and then all flew out backwards, smashing the surrounding tables and chairs, and the scene was a mess. This time, all the guests were stunned. The bald head looked at the fallen subordinate, and a chill came up from the soles of his feet instantly. At this moment, on the side of the wedding stage, a well-dressed middle-aged man frowned tightly together. This person is Xiao Yan, the head of the Xiao family, and Jordan's father. When his son gets married, of course he must be present. Just now, when David knocked back the dozen or so thugs, Xiao Yan saw them all. He is a martial artist himself, and he can see that David's strength is not simple. When Jordan on the wedding stage saw this, he frowned. Damn, it's all cooking waste. Roaring angrily, Jordan rushed down with a vigorous step. Husband. Delia also ran along with him. Layer, don't act rashly. At this time, on the side of the wedding stage, Xiao Yan, who had been sitting still, rushed over. He was afraid that his son would suffer. What's going on? What's going on? A dozen hotel security guards rushed in with rubber sticks. The Regal Hotel has been open for 5 or 6 years, and I have never seen anyone who dares to make trouble here. You must know that this Regal Hotel is the property of the Su family, the richest man in Horrendal. What's more, this time the eldest young master of the Xiao family is holding the wedding. The strength of the Xiao family is not much worse than that of the Su family. At this juncture, who would dare to come here to make trouble? Isn't that the longevity star who eats arsenic? Is it too long? In the private room on the 3rd floor, Reuben frowned when he heard the crackling sound below. The manager of the hotel came over in a cold sweat. What's going on down there? Reuben asked with some displeasure. Mr. Su, someone made trouble at the Xiao family's wedding banquet, beat people, and smashed things. The hotel manager hurriedly explained. Anyone dared to make trouble here? Reuben's face was angry. What are you doing to eat? You are a waste. Hurry up and send the security over there. Don't affect the reputation of our hotel. It's been dispatched, said the manager. Then why don't you go and deal with it, waiting for people to get angry? Reuben roared, scaring the manager to run away. Dad, you're not in good health, don't be angry, I'll go down and see. Sonia comforted Reuben and walked out of the private room. Sonia is now handling many things in the Su family. After all, Reuben is only her daughter. Now that Reuben is not in good health, all the burdens are placed on Sonia's shoulders. Marriage hall on the 2nd floor. More than a dozen security guards surrounded David. The hotel manager hurried over, nodded and bowed in front of Xiao Yan. Mr. Xiao, I'm really sorry, I didn't expect that there are people who are not afraid of death and dared to make trouble at the Xiao family's wedding. I am now drive the troublemakers away. After that, He said to the dozen or so security guards, "What are you still doing? Shoot the troublemaker out to me." "Wait a moment." Just when the security was about to start, Xiaoyan said, "When my son's wedding was making trouble and disturbing my guests, how could he just let him go? In that case, where would my Xiao family's face go? Even today, as I don't want his life, and I have to leave my hands and feet behind." The hotel manager is embarrassed. If he cuts off his hands and feet, what if he hates the hotel in the future and makes trouble again? Xiao Yan saw what the hotel manager meant, and said with a disdainful smile, "My Xiao family will handle this matter myself, you can get out of here." "Okay, let's get out now." Being able to do nothing, the hotel manager nodded hurriedly and happily. "Dad, I don't want his hands and feet, I want his life. If I dare to make trouble at my wedding, I want him to die." Jordan finished speaking, and then glared at David. "David, I have to let you die today, I will let you know what will happen to me. I just said, if I come to the wedding, then your wedding will not be possible. You always don't believe it, do you believe it now?" David looked at Jordan and smiled without fear. "I believe your mother." Jordan punched David fiercely. Bang! Click! Only a crisp sound was heard, and then Jordan's arm bent strangely, obviously broken. What? The severe pain caused Jordan to cry out in a heart-wrenching manner. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw this scene. David dared to attack Jordan, he was afraid that he was really courting death.
Please subscribe to follow the next more exciting chapters.